Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised. I think it could easily happen if they can't move down from this pick. I think this is another team that's going to look to move around in this draft. They don't want to stay at 15, down, up, whatever they got to do. And I'm kind of surprised that Brandon made the pick because it seems like him and Chris have been knocking on that QB bandwagon all through this first half of this draft. That's the people need to draft quarterbacks, and then one of the teams that need to doesn't in Miami. So I think they're going to move around, and if Pouncey's still there, I think he'd be a nice pick. But, Ryan Mallett's got to be very intriguing to them. Maybe Jake Locker's got to be intriguing if he's still on the board, which he is in our mock draft. So I think that will be very interesting, too.
All right, and next up, I have number 16, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and another chalk pick, I think. This is one that everybody's had for a long time, but there's reason for that. It just makes a lot of sense. And I'm going to go with Ryan Kerrigan from Purdue. They need a pass rusher desperately. Derek Harvey, I think we can pretty safely write him off as a bust at this point. Derek Campman's coming off his second major knee injury in 2 years, and he's not getting any younger. Ryan Kerrigan fills the need, and he's the type of player the Jaguars are looking for both on and off the field. 2 plus 2 equals 4 on this one for me. Stuber?
Yeah, you can't argue with Ryan Kerrigan. I mean, the kid's an absolute worker. I mean, he's a maximum effort kind of defensive end, a guy who I think Jacksonville fans really like. Very high motor guy, good leader. Great production this past season, great production over his career. So I can't argue with it, but if J.J. Watt, he's still on the board here. I do like J.J. Watt. I think this kid has the ability to play in any scheme. He's a good pass rusher, a guy who makes a lot of plays in the backfield. Still developing, and that's kind of scary, but he has that body, that frame. The Jaguars have gone after guys who are a little bit lighter, Quentin Groves, Derek Harvey. He's a little bit bigger, but he didn't have the bulk that he really wanted with his frame. I just think J.J. Watt's solid, and if he's on the board at number 16, I think the Jaguars may go that way, but I can't argue with Kerrigan because I love him as a player. He's a max effort guy, and I love every down that he plays.
Shane?
Yeah, I think this is just a Gene Smith type of pick. Tyson Alualu, we felt was a reach last year. That being said, he really fit the scheme well. He fit the system. He was a high-character guy that did well in interviews. That's Ryan Kerrigan. This is a nonstop motor. This is a player who can be very versatile in the way he uses his hands and the way he uses his physical tools and abilities. He's probably wowed the Jaguars and Gene Smith in interviews. He is a Jaguars type of player. That's why everyone mocks him to them. So Jaguars fans can't really get upset because I think this is the type of player that the Jaguars go after every time.
Brandon, any issue with that one?
No issue. I think probably Watt's the pick there. If he's there, a lot of people have him gone right in this area, and I know that he's the favorite pick for the Patriots. But from a production standpoint, I just like Watt there. I think that Watt would fit in well. Kerrigan's an amazing player, but I've seen him mocked in the early and mid 20s. I think that Watt's production would be pretty phenomenal in a situation like they have there in Jacksonville. And my pick would have been Watt. I do like Kerrigan. I think probably Kerrigan is a bit underrated and downplayed by a lot of people. I just don't think that they've had the opportunity to watch him because of where he played. But I like the player, that's for sure. I just would have picked J.J. Watt there myself.
Well, and I agree with everyone that Watt would fit too, and he probably would have been the plan B if Kerrigan was gone. And as a dark horse, watch out for Jake Locker. I mean, the Jaguars need to bring in a quarterback at some point. I don't know if they're going to do it in round 1, but Locker's the type of kid they look for. Another guy both on and off the field. So watch out for that as maybe a curveball. Next up, we got Chris Stuber at number 17 with the New England Patriots.
Well, to me, this is easy right now because I'm going J.J. Watt, and he fits there perfectly. Like I said, I think he fits in any scheme. Although I think they would consider Anthony Costanzo here, depending on what's available at the time. He's a local kid. The Patriots haven't shied away from drafting local kids in the past. You remember the 1 year where they got Ron Brace and Darius Butler, kids who went to school up in that area, and they scout a lot of kids in that area. So Costanzo would be a popular pick, although it wouldn't be a big need right away. But Matt Light's getting a little bit older. He's a free agent, I believe, after this season. And, but I think J.J. Watt, again, his production is phenomenal. He's still developing. He's only going to get better. They need a pass rush up there off the edge. So, yeah, I think Watt is the selection right now.
Well, and I think that definitely makes sense from a value and a need standpoint. And although I wouldn't rule out the offensive line either, because like you said, Matt likes a bit of a question mark, and watch out for Mike Pouncey if he's there. Bill Belichick loves those Florida Gators, and Logan Mankins' future's up in the air. Dane Compton's getting up there in years a little bit, so I wouldn't rule that out. But I mean, J.J. Watt makes a lot of sense. Before we go to Shane and Brandon, quick, Chris, do you think do you lend any credence to the talk that maybe the Patriots wouldn't take Watt because Belichick doesn't like his agent, or do you think that's much ado about nothing?
You know, I think you look at the player before the agent. You deal with the player more often than you do with the agent. So, you know, if you like Watt, and I think Watt is a Patriot type of player. I also think Kerrigan's a Patriot type player. But, you know, I think Watt is the kind of guy that Belichick would love on his defense. So I don't really pay too much attention to that kind of stuff. You know, I don't even think Belichick even has to deal with the agent. He's not he's not negotiating the contract here. He just has to deal with the player. So I think that's much ado about nothing.
Shane, what do you think?
I know, I like the pick. I think this is about where he should go. He probably should go even higher with the workouts that he had. The ceiling's pretty high, high character, great interview, great intangibles. You know, all these things are molding to him. He can fit any defense. So I think Watt should really go higher than this. I'd kind of be surprised if he's still there at 17.
All right, and Brandon?
You know what? Who knows what Bill Belichick is going to do? I mean, seriously. But like everyone said, this is a Patriots type of player, you know, and you just can't hardly guess what that man's going to do. Who knows? They may not even pick in the first round. They may have, you know, 6 picks in the second round by the time it's all said and done. But out of the people that are there, I think that J.J. Watt is their selection, and I don't really expect that the agent situation has a whole lot to do with it.
I will say this, though, too, about the Patriots. They are the smartest, best team in the draft of all time. I mean, they know how to manage the draft better than any team. And you're right there. You're right, Brandon. They could definitely trade out the first round both times. They definitely could and collect those picks and still come away with probably one of the top 5 most productive drafts this year.
All right, next up, we've got Shane at number 18 of the Chargers, and just for everyone, we'll try to pick up the pace just a tad bit. We're behind a little bit. Want to try to finish up all these picks within the 2-hour limit, or as close as possible. So, Shane, 18 in the Chargers. Who you got?
It's a tough choice for me. Do they reach for a player like Cam Hayward? Do they take Corey Legit, try to fit him into the 3-4? I don't know if they do that if the board falls this way, so I'm going to have them look a different way, and that's Anthony Costanzo, offensive tackle at Boston College. Good value. They need a right tackle pretty badly, need interior linemen. Costanzo is versatile enough to play any of those positions, so it might be a little bit odd of a pick, but I think the Chargers could go this way.
I'm a little torn on that. I mean, I agree that they need help along the offensive line. I just don't know that Costanzo is the type of offensive lineman they look for. It seems like they prefer the beefier guys, the 330-pound mauler types, where Costanzo's right around 300 and not necessarily a power player. I mean, I just think they're going to look for help in that defensive front seven come hell or high water, whether it be at the defensive end spot or pass rushing outside linebacker. So I'm a little leery about it. Like I said, I don't disagree that they have a need at the offensive tackle position. I just don't know if Costanzo's a good fit for them. I don't know if he's a top 4 offensive tackler. I don't think, Chris.
Yeah, this is a tough one, though. It really is. The way that the board is shaking out right now and what's available, Costanzo is an intriguing guy. He really is. I guess you would have to maybe look at Muhammad Wilkerson or maybe even Adrian Claiborne here if you wanted to go into the defensive side of the ball. This is a tough one, though, for the Chargers. I mean, they could even trade back if they wanted to. I mean, there's been talk that they were even considering that. So, I'm okay with Costanzo. I mean, he's gained a little bit of bulk. He's got a little stronger. He has good feet. He has good technique. He's a very smart guy. So I'm okay with it, but at this point in the draft, you have to look at your board, and if he's rated highly on their board, I can see where Shane's going with this pick.
Brandon?
You know, Costanzo is definitely up there on my board. I don't disagree that they need help at right tackle. I would be hard-pressed to pass on the Muhammad Wilkerson, and I'll toss out another name out there. You know, what about a Cameron Hayward, or you know, we mentioned Claiborne. You know, either of those guys I think fit there I would suspect that they're going to do something along the defensive line, but my guess is Shane just saw the value is too high on Costanzo to pass, and ultimately that team is good enough that they're in a situation where they can take what's best player available. And if Costanzo was the next guy on the board, I wouldn't be shocked if that was their pick.
Well, and I know Shane was in a tough position there because the way the board broke, Cam Jordan, J.J. Watt, Ryan Kerrigan, Eldon Smith are all off the board. But Brandon, you made a good point, Cameron Hayward, and I've heard the Chargers linked to him, and we've seen in recent years A.J. Smith isn't afraid to kind of march to the beat of his own drummer on draft day to a certain degree. So I wouldn't rule that out as being a possibility if the board went down like this and those four guys I just mentioned are all off the board. Next up, we got Brandon at number 19 with the New York Giants.
This is easy for me. I actually have Gabe Carimi ranked above Anthony Costanzo just by one position on my board, and I just like the athleticism and I like the production. I know that Carimi benefited from Moffitt playing next to him and vice versa, but I think that Gabe Carimi is a perfect fit there in New York. By far and away, their number one need filled with Gabe Carimi in the first round.
All right, and I can definitely see the Giants going with an offensive lineman there. And if anything, I think offensive line is the favorite, whether it be Mike Pouncey or one of the guys that tackle, whether it be Costanzo or Gabe Carimi or even Nate Solder. I definitely think the Giants are looking offensive line there. And the other option would maybe be Corey Legit as a defensive tackle from Illinois. But I have no problems with the pick. I think they need to bring in some youthful reinforcements up front, and Carimi would be a good pick there. Stuber?
Yeah, I think he hit it with Legit as well. I think that's another destination for him there in New York. Carimi's not a bad fit there at all. I think Mike Pouncey would be their dream scenario. I think he's the kind of guy that I'd love to have inside. Also, Mark Ingram. He's on the board. His father played for New York. They needed some running back help. He could be a wild card there for New York.
Shane.
Stuber stole my thunder. I was going to break out the Mark Ingram talk here. So, but I think they'd probably actually go Legit here, but I think it'll be pretty close between the two. But, yeah, I think Ingram's a nice little dark horse for the Giants.
All right, and I'm up next at number 20 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And kind of like Shane was with the Chargers, I'm in a bit of a tough position here, I think, because a lot of the defensive line depth is gone. But also, I think that other positions Tampa Bay would potentially consider, there isn't value either. Offensive tackle, especially with Costanzo and Carimi both off the board, I don't know that they would go that route. Cornerback maybe, with Aqib Talib, sounds like he's going to produce, but after the road they went down with him, they're not going to go with Jimmy Smith, I don't think. So maybe Akeem Ayers. They want some help at linebacker, but I think he'd be a pretty big reach here at 22. So I'm going to go with Adrian Claiborne. I know there's a lot of talk that he's dropping, and maybe he does, but the Buccaneers just have a clearly defined need at defensive end, and Claiborne's the best guy left. So I'm going to go that direction. Stuber?
I can't argue with the pick. I like Claiborne probably more than most people do. I think we all know the Buccaneers need. Defensive end is a huge need. Like you mentioned, cornerback Jimmy Smith. I mean, Jimmy Smith is probably a top 12 talent in this year's draft, without a doubt. But again, like you said, with Aqib Talib, who I love coming out of college, and all of his problems, it's just going to deter them away from going that route. But I'm fine with Adrian Claiborne. Again, Mark Ingram, possibly. That's a possibility.
Shane?
No, I like the pick. I think if the board falls this way, then Claiborne's a nice little pick for the Buccaneers. I think he's a nice fit for their system. He's not a great fit for every system, especially 4-3 systems. But with Tampa Bay, I think they could use his versatility along the line pretty well. So I think it's a good pick. I think they'll address that front seven and see who falls.
Brandon, what do you think of it?
I think it's a little bit of a reach. Personally, I've seen Claiborne go and very top of the second round and a whole lot of mock draft. I really think that Jimmy Smith is a smart pick. However, the whole Aqib Talib situation and that sort of thing, it's just caused them to really hold off on making any moves like that. So I'm glancing at the board here, and I'm not sure who I would take, actually, considering their needs and that sort of thing. I guess maybe I'd look at Ingram, but Jimmy Smith would really be my pick if he